I want to welcome everyone today to our webinar on the art of coding with NVivo with Dr. Stacey Penna. Today's event is sponsored by American University's Measurement and Evaluation Program. At American University, we are committed to pursuing inclusive excellence. One of our practices, shared from our Indigenous and Native communities, is to offer a land acknowledgement at the beginning of our meetings and events. The goal is to build our mindfulness of the historical processes in which we still participate. American University is founded on the unceded land of the Nacotchtank, Anacostan, and Piscataway peoples. I ask you to join me in acknowledging these communities, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. American University also acknowledges that it was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples, including those on whose land this institution is located. With this acknowledgement, we commit to working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Those of you who attend our events know that we always provide a land acknowledgement. I would encourage you today to take this a step further and do some research on the land in which you are sitting. If you're not aware of the history of the land, I'll put some links in the chat that you can either text or search online to discover the history of the land where you are sitting. I want to go ahead and get started today. Welcome again, and thank you for joining us for our workshop. Our speaker is Stacey Penna. Stacey.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the invitation, Beverly. Glad to be here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen and do a short PowerPoint. I'm going to do some polls and then go right into the software. So again, like Beverly mentioned, this webinar will be on the art of coding with NVivo. Again, my name is Stacey Penna. I'm the Engagement and Enablement Director here at Luma Nevero. And I've actually used NVivo for my own dissertation a few years back. So I'm familiar with how researchers use it. And then after I graduated, I started working for the company, and I've been lucky enough to do these types of presentations from over the last few years. So first, I just like to, and even before I do this, I want to do a quick poll. So just to get a sense of your experience with NVivo, do you consider yourself a novice user? You used it for less than a year, or competent, used it for multiple projects, or an expert, like you could probably train other people, you've used it and used the advanced features of it. So people don't mind taking the poll, that'll help me. Great, got most of everyone. So I'll end the poll and share the results. So it looks like most of you are novice users, so that's great. That's who I typically demonstrate NVivo to, because they have the most interest in learning it. So that helps me, thank you. So this is one reason I have this slide, is just to explain how NVivo can help you throughout your research process. So it helps you manage your data and your research process, but it does not dictate what you do. So it's method agnostic. It's really meant just as a tool to help you organize your data and how you're going to work with your research. It also has some automation tools. So we have NVivo transcription I can show you at the end if you'd like. And then we have some automated insights that I'll show you in the software. It helps you with the rigorous analysis. So we're going to concentrate on coding today, and I'll show you some queries. It allows you to share your findings with visuals like maps, charts, and also you can collaborate with colleagues or team members also with the software. And it works with all these different types of data sources. So Word documents, PDFs, video, audio, images, and then also if you're doing surveys, it works with SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, but also just a spreadsheet with your survey. So we have integrations with those. And then also a range of reference management software. We now offer Citavi, which is a reference management and writing tool. So you can check that out if you're interested at some point. And so today we're going to really be talking, about the art of coding, and how you want to think about it as a systemic process. It helps, you want to think about when you need to do data reduction. You got to think about your subjectivity when you're coding, and also ways to be transparent so you can show people how you created the codes, how you came up with it. So typically as a student, I know I had to show that to my advisor, but even, researchers need to show it to their team members or their stakeholders too. So I'm going to talk about a couple different ideas around strategies for coding here. So this is from Phil Padu. He has a great book, Step-by-Step Guide to Qualitative Data Coding. And it actually also talks about how to use NVivo with it too, as one of the qualitative data analysis softwares in the book. And so he describes having a coding strategy where you want to think about your description focus coding. So what when you're reading through your transcripts or focus groups, what are people describing? So what is it? And then maybe your interpretation focus coding. So what does it mean when people are talking about whatever question you ask them with your research question, how are they getting to the meaning of that? And then presumption focus coding. So what is the claim or conclusion you're getting from what you're reading in your data? And then Johnny Saldana has a book on coding, a coding manual for qualitative research. I think the latest one was maybe came out recently, like 2018. And he talks about coding cycles. So when you're first going through your data, you might do your first cycle, which is looking at like elemental, effective literary language, really the nuts and bolts of what you're seeing in your data. And then he's a proponent of definitely using memos when you're doing your coding, which I think most people do, just to think about what am I seeing? Are there patterns in these categories that I'm coding? And then he suggests, after you do some analysis there, you're going to go into second cycle where you're classifying, prioritizing, integrating, synthesizing, abstracting, conceptualizing, and theory building. So that's when you're getting to the meat of your coding really, and what you'll probably be writing about. Now, there are many coding strategies. So those are just two examples of some that I read about and I know people use. And I would say there's not a right way or wrong way. It's more about having a strategy that you can explain and also show how you did the coding. So Beverly, jump in if you want to add anything, but that's how I did it. And when I read about it, it seems like it's important. So for NVivo, what I'm going to show you in the software is thinking about like pre-coding activity. How can you look at your data across many data sources? So I'll show you how you can do a word frequency, a word cloud, text search, word tree, and then going into your coding. So NVivo I'll show you how to do auto coding, though mostly you'll be doing your own coding. So your broad brush or open coding, and then refining that to more of your Axel coding, how you can do NVivo coding, how to create a code book, especially if you're working as a team. But even as a student, I had to create a code book and put it in my appendix of my dissertation. And then how you would use memos to help you really think through your coding. And then for post coding, how can you show your coding visually and export these visuals to a report? So maps, charts, framework matrix, and a matrix coding query. Okay, I'm going to go into software, but before I do, I have one more poll because this will just help me to understand your coding. So I'll just launch it. How do you work coding most of the time? Is it typically you're doing it individually? Are you working with a couple colleagues or a team of 4 or more? Okay, I'll end the poll. Thanks for doing that. So it looks like most of you are individual and a few are working with colleagues. So I'll address the team aspect of coding too, since there are some people that are working together. So I'm in NVivo. So this is what you come to when you open up the NVivo. This was released in March 2020, this version. I want to create a new project. I could give it a description. It'll even keep a log of all your actions if you need that. Sometimes certain research projects do. And then I'll create the project. So since a lot of you are new to NVivo, I just want to show you when you open up the software, it does give you this quick tour. So it's going to show where you would import your data, where you can organize your coding, your cases, your notes, how you can explore your data with queries, visualizations, and then we do have these modules. So we have NVivo transcription that I spoke about before. We also have NVivo collaboration cloud. So I can show you how that works too if people at the end are interested because they're working as a team. And then also it's helpful because when you click on something new in NVivo, this prompt will come up and explain what a file means in NVivo. And then you can go to the help menu to get more, just a way to help you learn the software. So I'm in a blank project, and just to navigate through how you'll use the software is on the left side, you have a blue navigation panel, which is helping me where I'm going to import my data sources. The second panel or section is around organizing my coding, my cases, my notes, my sets. And then the third area is about exploring with queries or visuals too. And then on top with the tabs, it helps you really navigate to different features of the software. And the white part is where you're working, your workspace. So I'm just going to create a new folder here. So this is where I would start organizing my different data types. So if I want to keep it different, maybe I have focus groups, or a lot of times people even use the lit review and so on. So I'm going to go to interviews here, and I want to import some files so I can work with them. So I can import files, which I'll do in a second. I can import surveys going right to Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, or going to an Excel file. I also can import from bibliographical software. So I did use I brought my lit review into NVivo and analyzed it more. So that's another handy thing. So I'll just go to files here and go to my data. And I have a bunch of interviews. So I'm going to bring in Word documents, but also audio and video files. And the software is asking me, do I want to create these interviews as cases at the same time? So cases are basically a way to organize your units of analysis. So in this case, I'm interviewing individuals that live in a coastal community because we're asking how environmental climate has impacted their communities. And so I do want to create these as cases. So I'm just going, these are my interview participants. And I'll show you why this is helpful in a second. And so you can see all my interviews came in. And at the same time, I also was able to create my cases. So if I interview, for example, Barbara 2 or 3 times, I can also add all those other interviews to Barbara's case. And so then all the data I have about my participants stays in one folder called a case. And then it also allows me to create, which I haven't done yet, attributes. So for example, I could create an attribute for age. I'll just do it. And I could keep going. And then I can assign that attribute to Barbara. So you can see, you can bring that demographic information into the cases too, and then you can look across cases to see if the coding was different with different participants. But we're here for coding, so I just wanted to open up Barbara's interview and just show you how easy it is to code. Yeah, so the question I just saw was, what about tagging teachers, school administrators, families? Yes, those would be attributes. So you would put them in a category, maybe their job roles in this case, and then have a list. And so you could assign, were you interviewing a teacher or a school administrator? So that would be all in the attribute in the classifications. So I have Barbara's interview open, and I can easily just start reading and coding. So typically this is more of your broad brush coding. You're going through your interviews for the first time, getting a sense of what's in them. So let's say here, she's talking about community. So I can highlight this passage. There's a bunch of ways to code in NVivo. I can just drag and drop and bring it in here and call it communities. If you are working as a team or you need to show people a code book at the end, I would give a description, because then I'll show you how you can create a code book later. And then I can just keep going through and coding here. So here she's talking about different communities. So one thing I could do is I can highlight and right click and code. So we have this coding panel, so I could also do this, for example, and go through. And then I could open another interview, and in here I'll just do one more. So another way is I can right click here, and also she mentioned GIS. I'll just type this in, and you can also assign colors to the codes, and I'll show you why that's powerful in a second. And then I made the code, so I can go here. So with NVivo, you can either, a lot of times people will create codes as they're reading through their interview, or sometimes if you're working at the team, you could create your code structure before you start coding. That, again, no right or wrong way to do it. It's just how you feel comfortable with it. So when I open up this community code, I just want to show you what it looks like after coding. You can see what I coded, and I can always get back to the original Barbara's transcript in NVivo. Now, in this case, I have communities and types of communities. So I might want to start creating a more refined structure here. So I can right click, cut, or copy. I'm going cut in this case, click on communities and say paste. And so now I'm starting to build that hierarchy based on my broad brush coding, and then going more into that Axel coding or refined coding here. Now, another great thing I found with NVivo is I could also code on a code. So if I did in communities, everywhere I found what people said about communities in this code, but I wanted to start refining it and doing that Axel coding. I could, a place that has strong community, I enjoyed growing up, have kids. So I could also code on this code, and in this case, I'll do the coding selection, and I want to put it under here, a child node, and I'll call it kids. So I can start really going through that coding strategy that I decided to do. Now, I could go through all my interviews and code them one at a time, but what I tend to find is I'm finding certain keywords like community or change in my interviews. So I can also go up to the Explore tab and do things like a word frequency query. And maybe that'll help me see what are the common words that I want to start with when I'm coding. So I can do exact matches, STEM words. In this case, I only have interviews, but I'll go to my interview folder because that's what I want to look through, and I'll run the query. So somebody asked, does the file have to be set up in a particular way in order to import properly? If it's a Word document or PDF, no. I will say PDFs though, if it was an image PDF, you can't code on the text because then you would code it like an image, which I can show you in a second. And yeah, so I have 100 most frequently used words. It automatically adds like a and the to a stop word list, but I can add other words to that list if I want. And then I have some visuals here. So I have a word cloud, and this is always a nice visual just to see the larger the word, the more often it's used in the interviews. So you'll see it's running, it'll pop up in a second.
What'd you just press to get the word cloud?
Oh, just this tab here. Do you see it on the right? And so it's showing me the 100 most frequently used words. The bigger the word, the more often it's used. And even from here, I can dig deeper. So, you know, we're doing research with a coastal community, so not surprising, water's coming up. So what are they saying about water? I can right click on the word and run a text search. And it's showing me all these interviews mention water. I can actually get to the reference itself in the tab on the right. So it's showing me what people are saying about water. And then we also have another visual called a word tree. And this is showing you the 5 words before or after water. I could add more words if I want. And again, it's just sort of playing around with your data to see, okay, that's interesting. It's standing out that they're talking about water quality. So I want to see what are they talking about with water quality. So I'll run that. And it's showing me what they're saying. But again, 5 words before and after the phrase is probably not enough context for me. So I'm going broaden the context and run the query again. And now it's giving me a paragraph about or around the word water quality. And I can see these different interviews mention water quality. So now the software has done quite a bit of work for me. So instead of me trying to find everywhere in all the interviews that they mentioned water quality, I can just save the results to as a code in the code folder, and I'll call it water quality. And you can see it's here. So it's 5 files and 13 references, meaning that's the codes, the areas that were, the references that were coded to water quality from the text search. So again, just a nice way to start and look at your data. You could even just go to a text search and, you know, you don't have to do the word frequency to get to the text search. I could just go right to a text search and see what comes up when I type in change. So again, I'm getting the references here. I'll do the broad context again. And I'll save these results also as a code. And so you can see it's listed here. So I just want to go back to the PowerPoint, make sure. Yep. So I just showed you some of that pre-coding you can do even before you start coding, or maybe you do some coding and then you go to do the word frequency, word cloud, the text search, the word tree. So something else you can do in NVivo is do auto coding. So I'm just going to close these. And I tend to do this at the beginning. So I'm going to pick all these, oops, all the
Stacy, before you get too far down, there's a question.
Oh,
Could
sure.
you go back to how we save query results as a code?
Sure. So it's, let me just go back to Explorer. So I'll run this. And so if I want to save these results, I just say save results here. And then this box comes up and then I just pick codes. Okay. And then fish. And then it will save. And it's if I go to my codes in a second, you'll see it. And so now I have fish listed. So that's for a text search. So I think that was the question. Now, another way to sort of do a sort of broad brush and look through all your data that you have, or pick certain types of data, you can do auto coding in NVivo. So I'm going auto code by theme. I could also do it by sentiment, what's positive, negative. And I could also do it by existing coding patterns. So if you've coded maybe 15% of your transcripts, the software sort of learns how you're coding, and you can do that. So I'll hit next, and it's going through all my interviews here. It's an algorithm, so it's looking at noun and noun phrases. And so it's created my coding hierarchy. So I have the top codes, the parent codes, and then the child codes underneath. And I'll go next. It's going code by sentences, or you could pick paragraphs there. And it's going to save it in a separate coding folder, because I probably don't want all this in my own coding. And typically, like I do this at the beginning. I'm curious what's in my data. What is the software saying to me? Or I'll run it at the end of my coding to see, did I reach saturation? Was there something that I didn't pick out that the software maybe is looking at a different way? So I get a hierarchical chart that's showing me the parent code and the subcodes underneath. I can always click on these boxes to get to the actual coding. And then it also gives me a table that's showing me all the data sources I have, and then the top sort of themes that the software is finding. So again, it might be a place to start. You're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. A lot of people are talking about water, like we mentioned before, or fishing. So again, there's not a right way or wrong way. And of course, you still are the researcher, so your coding is very important. It's just another tool to use. Okay. So I did show you broad brush sort of talked about that axle coding. Oh, NVivo coding. So you can also, so again, if I go to, so NVivo coding is typically used when there's a phrase in the actual transcript that you want to create, a phrase or a word you want to create as a code. So I'm trying to think, there's a word here. I'm just going to see if I can find it quickly. That this group talks, or this Barbara talks about. Okay, I don't want to take too much time trying to find it, but let me go here. So inherited land. So she's mentioning inherited land. So I want to highlight that, and I'm going to right click and code in NVivo. All right. So if I click that and I go back to codes, you can see it created a code called inherited land just from the transcript here. So this is something, a way people code. It's a strategy because they feel like it's getting closer to the data if they're creating the codes from the actual text. Now with NVivo though, you do then have to, because it's only the word that was coded. So if I want to make sure I get this whole paragraph, I'll just have to highlight it and put it in inherited land. So just open that up to show you what that looks like. So, and you can get back to it. So again, that's just another way people code, and it's built into NVivo to help you with that. All right, so I started with a blank project just to show you how easy it is to get started and import and start coding. If you're new to NVivo, I always tell people just bring in like one interview or one piece of data and start playing with it. You don't have to bring in everything all at once. You can do that later. But to get more data, here's a question. Is there a way to somehow keep track of notable quotes? Oh, yes. So a couple ways to do that. You could either, sometimes people create a code called, I'm going good, oops, good quotes or something like that, or notable quotes. And then you could, because you can, what's nice about NVivo, you can also code to many. So again, let me open up Barbara's interview. Yeah, you can code to as many codes as you'd like. So for example, oops, gotta go back to codes. So maybe this is a memorable quote for me or a good quote. I'll put it there, but I also might have it in a different code around talking about community. So again, that's one of the flexibilities of the software. You can code a piece of text as many codes as you want, if it makes sense. And then another way, which I forgot to mention, is memos. So, memos are used for a variety of reasons with qualitative research, but so you could create a memo on your coding or quotes, for example. And it's basically just a document in NVivo that you can, type in and keep your reflections. I always like to insert the date time stamp. It just helped me keep track of my thoughts and ideas in an order. And so this you could type in this quote seemed very important, and so on. So it'd be whatever you think and why. So this is why you're sort of explaining why this quote is important. So that's sort of part of your analysis. And what's sort of nice here is I can create a C also link. So I could link to that code. So let me do that. Let me go. Sorry, Mr. Code copy. Links, here it goes. Link to also links, see a new one. And now it's asking me what item do I want to link to, and select. No, it's a select an existing one. So I had that code on good quotes. And so now that's pink, meaning, all right, well, now I know there's a see also link. So it even has on the bottom and it's showing me, and I can go right there and see what go right into the code. It takes me there. So again, that's another power of NVivo. It can link you to different parts of your analysis and help you just remind yourself, oh yeah, that's an example of a quote I want to use, that kind of thing. So hopefully that was helpful. Here's some questions. Does auto-coding just code based on frequent words? It's based on noun and noun phrases as an algorithm, and I don't know much more than that, sorry. When you search and interview data, does the software recognize the difference between transcription of what the researcher says versus what the participant says? Good question. No, it doesn't unless you separate that. So let me show you what you can do to separate that. So I can also do auto code by speaker name here. And so I can put in, so we have two speakers, we have Henry and Barbara, for example. If you had more, you would add more. So it's going to separate what they said. So if Henry was the interviewer, then in participants, now I'm going to create a new classification, speakers, just so it's easier for me to find and finish. And so now when I go to speakers here, oops, no, it should be here, sorry, speakers. I can open this up and showing me just what Barbara said. So now you could do your text search and word frequency just on these. You could pick this just to do instead of the whole interview if you wanted to. To me, that's the easiest way to separate it from the interviewer and the interviewee. So hopefully that made sense. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so focus groups, right? That is very helpful to do with focus groups. I think that's one reason they created it. Yes. So how about tracking different codes by attributes, teacher? Yeah, so let me go, because I don't have a lot of data in this project I just started. I'm going to go to our sample project. I can answer some of these questions better. I'll save it just in case we want to go back to it. And so the sample project comes with the software, so you can always play around with it before you work in your own data if you want. So you can see here we have a lot more. So I don't know, so I just showed you how to code text. Let me know in the chat if you like, you can code on images, video, audio, PDF. So if there's anything else you want me to show how to code, let me know. Happy to do that. But the question in the chat was around, not codes, cases here. So if I go here, you can see that you would assign your units of analysis, the participants in this case, the attributes that are important to your study. There's a couple ways to do this. You can do it one by one, add the attributes, or you can also, let's see if I can, or new person, sorry, I'm just trying to, yeah, so, or you can see this is showing me everything that's in NVivo right now under classifications. So you also could have this in a spreadsheet and import it into NVivo, and NVivo will create your cases and attributes for you. It's pretty easy. You do have to have it formatted so the respondents are in the first column and then going across. There are, if you go, the help menu is very helpful in NVivo. So if you go this little, it's hard to see, but this little question mark, it'll actually take you to the help menu. And then, there's a ton here on, cases, classifications, and you can read how to do that. I won't have time to show you for this presentation. Okay, so now just because I have more data, now I can show you some more things like a code book. So if I go to share here, I can export a code book. I'm just going to do the top level codes here. And it exports it to a Word document. And you can see if I have a description of the codes, it will be right there. So again, it's handy if you need to put something like this in appendix for a report, or if you're working as a team too. And then some of the other post coding. So you've done your coding. Now you want to look more deeply at maybe a cross code. So you want to do some, for example, I'll show you how you can do a matrix coding query in the software. So I go to Explore, matrix coding, and this allows me to look across codes. Or really anything in the software, but I'll go to codes. So I'm going to pick here in the columns. Oh no, sorry, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go into economy itself. So I'm going to open up economy, all the codes under economy here. And then, so that was in the rows, and then in the columns for the table I'm creating, I'm going to create. So I want to see, did people, when people talked about the economy and natural environment, was there any crossover? And then I'll run the query. And this is one of the real powers of NVivo, because this is hard to do if you're just doing, everything coding, but in Excel or in a Word document. So here it's showing me, and I like to do the heat map. So am I seeing any crossover? Yeah, it seems like when people are talking about fishing and aquaculture, they're also talking about environmental change. So again, it's just a way to look at your coding and your data from a different viewpoint. And you can always export this to an Excel sheet, but we also integrate with SPSS. So sometimes people run this in quantitative software to get more information. You can also create a chart in NVivo and export this as a visual to put in a final report too, and so on. And you can save this query. So like if you have more coding you don't have to redo it every time. You can save it and then keep running it as you add more. Another query, which will bring in, I'm going to do a crosstab query. This will bring in those attributes. So maybe I want to see, by age group, did different people talk about the economy? Again, I'll just do the economy again, economy different. And I'm going to switch it to coding references from cases because that's going to probably give me better information. So again, this is adding it at the bottom versus the matrix coding query doesn't do that. But you could add attributes to the matrix coding query too. But it's again a nice way to look at your data. And just want to make sure to go. Okay, charts and maps. So you can also easily in NVivo create charts really in many ways. So I'm going to Barbara's interview again, go to visualize. I mean, I could do a word cloud just from Barbara's interview, but in this case, I'm just going to do a chart based on the coding in her interview. And again, I can right click and export this to a chart. So if that's helpful. You can also, if I go to visuals, we have maps. So maps are used in different ways. For example, this is a example of a mind map. So when you first create this, it's blank. So think of it as a whiteboard. And it's just a way for you to sort of think visually, like maybe your coding structure, that's what they did here. Or if you're working as a team, maybe what your ideas you have about coding, it's really up to you. It's just a way to work visually in the software. We also have a concept map. So this researchers tend to use when you've done a fair amount of coding, you know your data pretty well, and you're seeing patterns, you're seeing maybe a conceptual framework that you want to show visually. And so they actually brought in codes here, so you can bring in project items, and then they created connectors. And again, you can export this to put in a final report. So just a helpful way to look at your data and coding visually, and so on. So I want to show you that. Now, there were a few of you working as colleagues together on projects. So I just wanted to show you some of the ways working together with coding when you're working as a team or with a few colleagues. So again, I opened up Barbara's interview, and we have what we call coding stripes, which are going to, so first I'll show you what they look like. So I'll do recently coding. So the coding stripes here are showing what was recently coded in Barbara's interview. So if I click on it, it's going to highlight, and the coding stripes will highlight in the color they are. So I'll do purple one, so that's everything. And so on. So it's just a way to see what's in your coding visually, or what you coded in your interview visually. But I can also see how other team members coded. So if I go to select items and go to users, the people in bold, they coded in Barbara's interview. So click there. And you can see NVivo keeps track of who's done what in a project by your initials. So WWS coded all that, EDR is coding this. So this is one way to help you with your inter-rater reliability with coding, but we also have a query for that. So I'll just show you an example of one. So this is an example of a coding comparison query, and it's going to, oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm just getting a call. So it's going to give me that kappa coefficient, show me percent agreement and disagreement. So my understanding with disagreement, the kappa coefficient is the closer to 1 you are, the more agreement you have for coding. So I'll just show you one that has less agreement here. And you can see that the coding stripes come up by coder's initials. So WWS coded that section, HGP coded that section, and EDR coded that section. So this is helpful because you might want to discuss as a team, well, we're all going code to end of sentences or paragraphs, because NVivo calculates the kappa coefficient by the number of characters that you're coding. So just be aware of that. All right. So just to go back to the PowerPoint, I'm happy to take more questions and also show you how to code on other sources if you're interested. So I will share this PowerPoint with Beverly. So I do resources here, getting started, guide. These are actually videos to help you see how to do different things in NVivo, the help guide. And then we do have courses. They're very affordable. Like online courses is $50 for around $50 for a student, a little over $100 for a professor, a non-student. So those are, and we do have one on coding. That's very good. And then just to show you all the different types of ways we can help you with your research process. So when you're working with your literature review, we do have Citavi, which is reference management and a writing software, not just reference management. For NVivo can help you collect data. We have NVivo transcription to help you transcribe your audio and video files, to manage and analyze. You have your NVivo desktop to collaborate. Oh, I can show collaboration if people are interested, if you're working together, NVivo collaboration. And then to help you with your writing, again, Citavi can come in handy with that. I also want to share, I organize our engagement with customers and our community. And so we have some upcoming webinars series. They're all free. Feel free to register. It's Evolving Research in Qualitative and Mixed Methods. We have some big names, Adele Clark, who is very well known for grounded theory. Also, Dr. Brown and Dr. Clark, who wrote that article and many books on thematic analysis, and many others. And then we have a webinar series on organizing your writing from first draft to publishing. And I have a podcast that I do, and I interview researchers. And so if you want to learn more about how researchers work, feel free to go to the podcast and pick an episode that you're interested in. And then to join the community, basically just ask, if you sign up, we can then send you information about the events that we're having and resources for NVivo. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Stacy, one of the things that, yes, we're going to make the video available. Someone had a question, but one of the questions that students always have is with regard to data visuals. And I know you showed the word cloud. Can you maybe just give a little bit of a, what kind of visuals can the students do? And I know that that's another training, but
sure, I can show a few more, but we do have an on-demand webinar on our website. I'll just put some stuff here. Where to have it? So we do have a lot of resources on our website. So you can do a search for visuals and it will come up. But I did do one on visuals, so feel free to. Sorry, I just want to get back to the. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I'm still sharing. Sorry. Let me put this in the chat. It's weird. Oh, there. Oh, this keeps going. There it is. So feel free to, all these resources are free. So, but I can show a few more too. Where's the software? There it is. So you can do some cool things. And sometimes when I do demos, I try not to get too in the weeds because I just don't want to overwhelm people that are new to the software. But you can do some diagrams. So for example, I'll do a compare files diagram. So I'll just pick two, Charles and Dorothy. And so you can get visuals like this that are showing you between these two interviews, what are the common codes that they have and the ones that they don't have common. I mean, again, it's just a way to look at your data visually, and it might tell you a story or might help you go, oh, that's interesting. And it's based on your data. So, this might, when we look at this, it probably doesn't tell us a lot because we don't know the data as well as the researcher. But if you do know your data, it could tell you something that could be helpful. And again, you can always export this to an image. So that's another option. Another way to do that with more than just two items to compare is if I go to, let me go up here, explore and maps, and you can do a project map. So I didn't show you this one yet. and I can add project items. So let's say I want to bring in more than 2 files. And so it's coming in, showing me I have interviews on a video here. And I can bring in associated codes. So maybe I want to see the difference between people saying positive, negative, mixed attitudes with these. Oops, then I can move them around if that helps me see it better. So again, you can bring as many projects items as you want and just look at them in different ways. And again, you can always export to an image if it helps you put in a report. So those are some other visuals, but yeah, there are quite a few, and it just depends on your data and how the visuals are going to help you really tell that story. Any other questions, or I'm happy to show other types of data, how you code on a video, audio, images, if people are interested.
How would you recommend, I know students taking the qualitative methods class have to do a couple of interviews and a focus group, or students that are taking their project monitoring and evaluation 610 or 700 courses, they probably have 10 interviews, something like that, and say 5 focus groups. How would you recommend just getting started?
Yeah, so basically sort of like what I did when I opened that first project, I created folders first for the types of data. So interviews, focus groups here, like in the case, I don't have focus groups, so I'll add focus groups. And then if you're totally new to NVivo, I always suggest just opening up one interview like I did and just starting to read through it and start creating that coding. Another nice thing with NVivo is you can create folders under code. So let's say I want to create a folder, start of code. I mean, you can name it anything, but maybe, I mean, this is what I did. I created different folders. So like I had my first level of coding, which was really messy because I was coding everything. That's what happens. But then when I started seeing those patterns and I got the categories I thought were important with my data, based on, some of the literature I'd written, I could then start organizing these folders. So that's the start of coding. And then I created a folder, my key themes basically. And so I only brought in, so this, for example, was like my messy coding. I had a lot, even though this is pretty organized. But then I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to be writing about the economy. I know that's important. So I copy and put, so I don't lose my original coding, because I then could talk to that and explain how I did it in my dissertation. But I can bring it here so that I'm only working with what I'm going to be writing about. Okay. So again, there's no right or wrong way, but just think of it as a tool to help you organize to get to what you need in your final report. And I'll just open up agriculture here, because another key thing too is after you've done your coding and you need to write about it, what I did is I would export the code to a Word document. And so now I have in the Word document, the name of the code and where the codes, the references in the code came from. And so it just sort of helped me start writing that section of my report, my dissertation, and all that. So think of NVivo as a way to organize everything, really make you analyze, and then that's part of that memo process too. So I think to start is I would bring in a couple, not a lot, a few interviews, for examples, start coding those, creating, that messy coding structure, the broad brush. And then also, typically, I'm guessing your professors will want you to start creating memos too at the same time. So you'd create your memos in here too. Hopefully that made sense. Oh, a question. Somebody chatted. What steps would you take to ensure the validity and reliability of our process when using software? Well, actually, a long time ago, I wrote a paper about this with one of my fellow students with my advisor, and we really made the point that the software actually helps with both those, because I can show people my coding structure. I can do queries that sort of help me look across my data, right? So, and I forgot the name of it, but it is somewhere. So if you Google my name, or if you have access to a database, Penna, you'll find it. And we did talk about that validity and reliability process using software, because I think it makes it easier to show that with qualitative research than if you tried to do everything on paper and pencil and highlighter, right? So after you did a matrix coding query, we just saw a table. Can you easily view what people said related to the query? Oh yeah, sorry about that. Let me go to example. You can always get back to what they said. So let me open one here as an example. So again, like I said, that you can save your queries and run them again. So I can, if I want to find what people said, so they talked about recreational fishing and due to environmental impacts of fishing. So I can always double click on this and get to what they actually said. Now there is a way, and I always forget, I always have to have a trainer remind me, you can export this into a coding structure too, so you can bring all this into your codes too. And I forgot how to do it, but there is a way to do it so that you can, that a lot of times people like doing that too. Oops, sorry, other question. Can you assign multiple attributes to a focus group to different who said what in your coding? So I think what I would do, if I'm remembering right, so I showed you how to separate by speaker name, and that actually becomes, the speakers become the name, a case, and then you can assign attributes then to each speaker. I think that's what I would do to do what you said. But that's how on top of my head I'm thinking. But we do have, if you go, I just want to show you, if you have other questions about NVivo, under the community, we have NVivo forum, and I'm an admin, that's why I get that. We do have forums, so this is a great place to go ask a discussion and ask. I have John Eric here. He's my NVivo champion, and he's very good, and he'll answer your questions. So I think I was right on that, but feel free to go in and ask in here too. How do you code directly from transcripts? Okay, so that's basically what I showed you. So this was I imported at the beginning transcript. So I had imported Barbara's transcript, and I just open it up. This was a Word document. NVivo brings it in, and then you literally just read through and decide what you want to code. And like I showed a couple ways to code, but let's say I'll just put it in to balance here. So yeah, so it's coding is very easy in NVivo. I mean, it's like, it's really fun. You just keep going with the coding. So hopefully I answered that. Oh, from audio or video. Okay. So if I go to my interviews, here's an example of a video. So you can import a video into NVivo, and they do have the transcript attached to it. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. If you already have the transcript, you can have the transcript come in with the video. But we also, I'll just show the module here. We also have NVivo transcription. I'm not sure if I'm signed in to this, but you can use this product. It's a web app out, not with NVivo, but I'm showing you how it's integrated with NVivo. So I have Betty and Paul's, it's uploading it. It does transcribe in 27 different languages. So I'd pick English and I'd hit transcribe. It takes about half the time of the audio to transcribe. So if you had a 60-minute interview, it'd take about 30 minutes to transcribe. I won't show you all that now just because of time, but that you can also use that product. And then to code on the video, I'm just going to get rid of the waves so it's easier to see. So I can listen to, you won't hear it because of Zoom, but you can, it is playing. And then there's a couple ways, but I can start coding a selection by clicking here, stop coding it here, and I'll just pause. And you can see that little blue box. So that's what I coded. So I'll just drag it into memorable quotes here. And then when I open up this code, you can see on the right, the tab, there's a video tab, and it's showing you a thumbnail of the video. And then when I play it, it goes right to that part to code that I coded. So if you had a lot of videos, that would show up where it was coded. And you could also code on the text of it. And you can do the same thing basically with audio files too. So if I open up Helen's audio file, I could also pick part of it if I know the time. I can create the box there, and then I'll bring it into quotes. And then I'll show you if I go back to memorable quotes, I now have the audio tab. So I just like showing images. I'll show images because I think I had so you do photo voice or anything like that. I actually had my participants take pictures of artifacts in their classroom. So you can import an image and actually keep a log here. So let's say I want to write a note about the nets. I think I have to go to edit first. Yeah, and and then I can create insert. Why am I not seeing this? Hold on. Oh, that's why. Sorry, I have to click on edit. There we go. And then insert row. And so I can type, the nets, or maybe either what I think or what my participants thought with the photo. And then you can see it correlates right to the picture. But I can also go to codes, and I can also code right on the picture and go to memorable quotes. And again, I'll go back to the code, and now you can see the picture tab, and it's showing me what I code for a picture. And if I'd done text, it would be here too. So. Yes, the NVivo transcription service does identify the speaker. It does, and then you just have to put the speaker's name in it when you go to edit. Okay, I think I did that. Thank you. Our next work. Oh, okay. So you wrote that. Sorry. Okay, so that's it for me. So Beverly, I'll share the video and the PowerPoint with you too.
That sounds great, and we'll get it all uploaded online.
Good, great.
Thank you very much, Stacy. We really appreciate the time you spent with us and showing us the art of coding with NVivo. You were super helpful for the mechanics and the data visualization side of things.